has been tabling a position paper at the pre-budget seminar. An annual budget-making engagement between Parliament of Zimbabwe and the Ministry of Finance in an endeavor that national budget should mainstream gender concerns regarding female parliamentarians. As a result, the Minister of Finance and Economic Development has been prompted to prepare a gender-sensitive budget which directs ministries, departments, and their agencies to prioritize allocation of resources towards gender-sensitive programs and projects. Our response to recommendations flowing from the Standing Committee on Democratization, Governance, and Human Rights. The recommendation was to implore SADC member states to adopt legislated youth quotas in institutions of governance. I have already touched on this one. We've covered it in 4.3 and 4.4. Then there was a recommendation to urge SADC PF to engage in the process of developing a SADC model law on data revolution to mainstream youth engagement in data-driven decision-making and youth policy development. Zimbabwe government is seized with youth empowerment through mainstreaming in agriculture. Youths account for 60% of Zimbabwe's population. To harness this demographic dividend, all sub-sector initiatives recognize the role of youth in agriculture. Mainstreaming of youth in all of the key areas shall enable Zimbabwe to leapfrog into an upper middle class status by 2030 through agricultural-led economic development. Youths have benefited in the following initiatives rolled out by the ministry responsible for agriculture. 2,500 benefited from piglet scheme in 2020. From the 9,000 piglets distributed, 8,000 youth in agriculture is the youth desire for white-collar jobs. This mindset, though, needs decolonization. The report on gender equality, women and advancement and youth development.
Please conclude, Honorable Member.
Thank you. In conclusion, Your Excellency, Zimbabwe continues to make strides in implementing the recommendations made at plenary assembly meetings, including the 52nd plenary assembly meeting of the SADC PF held in Kinshasa, DRC. Parliament of Zimbabwe has implored standing committees to make follow-ups on the recommendations within prescribed time frames. I thank you for your time, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Honorable Member. With this, we have come to the end of the presentation of the country reports. Before we continue, I have a small announcement. Arrangements for lunch have been made for 14 hours, 2 o'clock. So this session will continue until then. The arrangement for lunch is at least for today. You will be advised if there is any change further on. I will now allow for debate on the country reports. Members who wish to debate, please indicate by a show of hands, and you have a maximum of 5 minutes. And if you have questions, please indicate clearly to whom you're addressing the question. And may I remind you once again to always introduce yourself when you take the floor. And I have one hand up, and I think, yes, I have, please let me note that. I have the member from Eswatini, is that correct? And a member from, I have a member from the DRC, is that correct? And a member from Botswana, that's correct? I think I have two members from Botswana. Okay, and on this side I have a member from, from Zambia, and also I believe from South Africa, correct? And here from Tanzania. Namibia. Please allow me. I will give the member from Eswatini the floor. It was from the DRC. I will give the member from the DRC the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me the floor. We followed, this is just a suggestion, we followed keenly all the reports from different countries, member countries. I would like to congratulate the various heads of delegation who were able to present the different reports coming from their countries. However, my observation here is related to the presentation. I would like to suggest that in the future, the Secretary General is able to make it available to all member states a standard which is going to enable us to write in a uniform way all the reports. Because like as we followed, we listen in a scattered way the report coming from different countries compared to the various resolutions made during the 52nd session. We took part in it during the Lilongwe report, the session, and last time it was in DR Congo, and today is in Tanzania. If the Secretariat General is able to show or suggest a standard, then this will enable each country to present a report complying to the standard that is proposed by the Secretariat General. For it to be efficient, I think we should handle it that way. This will enable all the countries to follow the different performance in this or that recommendation, and this will make it easier for all of us to follow the format that is suggested. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
The suggestion has been made to the Secretary General. I will give her the opportunity to address later on. I will call on the other member from the DRC. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me the floor. The discussion topic was related to the progress when it comes to the implementation of various decisions taken during the 62nd plenary session. And this is here related to decision that we took, but when we talk about decision, it's just a guidance in order for us to act. So we are not compelled to ratify. I would like to underscore that. And this is the reason why I would like to support the proposal from our colleague from Tanzania, who took the floor recently and just after the intervention of Angola and Botswana and DR Congo, and asking for all forums to have a specific objective in order for us to move from a parliament to a forum. And the idea is to ensure that our plea please turn into laws. Of course, with the binding aspect of a law. Thank you. Thank you.
On this issue, I will note that the subject of transformation is not a subject for one particular country, which is what we are considering now. It is rather a matter that is appropriate to the report on the executive committee. So if members will understand, I believe this question can be taken up when we take the committee report, the executive committee report. I will call on the member for Botswana. I believe we have two. We have two members from Botswana. One is, please address.
Thank you, Mr. President. My dear brother behind me has agreed that I should come first, then he will come.
Thank you.
No, it is no question, Mr. President. There was a point at the beginning of the session when my dear sister from the United Republic of Tanzania showed some worry about some of the countries that have not yet signed, why we are delaying to sign so that we can turn our body, our forum into parliament. For us in Botswana, the matter is still in the able hands of our head of state. There certainly shall be a time when he shall have made up, he shall have had his mind or his able hands on it. It's certainly under consideration. It is not that it has been thrown away. And then the other issue still on the same matter is that I don't think this is a matter that has applied to the Republic of Botswana only. During the times of COVID, most of our funds were channeled onto this portion whereby we have to save the lives of our people. And our economy back home got dented. I'm saying this for a simple reason that when this issue comes to the table, whereby it has to be really considered, it must be known that some funding in the form of subscriptions have to be considered. And certainly when consider some fogging into the Botswana pocket shall be made. Last but not least, I pray to all of us that remind all of us that the great achievements require time and perseverance. This matter of turning this issue into parliament is not a small matter, it's a very serious matter. It has to be cogitated upon as seriously as we possibly can. Patience is a virtue. We shall certainly get to that point. And lastly, let me thank my colleagues at the United Republic of Tanzania for naming the big power station after our father, the able Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, honorable member, for the suggestions. Yes, now I have it. I will now give the floor to the other member from Botswana.
It's okay. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mine is a reaction on a general issue relating to gender equality and sexual reproductive health issues. Yesterday, I had a chat with my wife and I was saying the winds of change are blowing in Africa. We have had 6 speakers at the official opening yesterday, and only 1 out of 6 was male. All of them were females. And I was saying to her that I think Africa is on track. is making so much progress. And I even indicated that even the direct proceedings was a female. And I think it's important that we teams as African countries, because I think research has shown that they tend to have lesser percentage of women representation in their assemblies. Botswana, for instance, I don't think we have reached 10%. We're about 5-7%. That's where we normally vacillate at. And I'm hoping that in future the situation will improve. I have also noted, as the presenters were making their presentation, I haven't heard much about the quest to fight period poverty, which has become a serious problem affecting the girl child, in fact, even interfering with their education. I don't know how many of our countries have a provision of free sanitary pads and related products, especially in schools. I know we emphasize the free distribution of condoms, but not free distribution of sanitary pads. Recently, Botswana Parliament has moved, after numerous calls to abolish pink tax. We are not there yet, but at least now a value-added tax will not be applicable on sanitary pads and related products. And I don't know how many of our countries have moved to abolish a pink tax, exempting tax from sanitary pads and related products. The other issue, which is not popular, especially amongst politicians in Africa, because majority view it as an issue that does not win votes, is the issue of the LGBTIQ+. Recently, our Court of Appeal, which is the Superior Court of Record in our country, moved to, or held in a case in which a gay man sought to challenge the provisions of our penal code. The court held that those provisions criminalizing homosexual acts was unconstitutional. And Parliament in this July session will move to align the penal code with the pronouncement of the Superior Court of Record, which is the Court of Appeal, or the Apex Court. Lastly, in the remaining few seconds, is also the important issue of prevention of spread of HIV and AIDS. The issue, this part has not been popularized in the country, but at least in our public facilities, there is both provision of post-exposure prophylaxis and a pre-exposure prophylaxis. It's common in sort of sexual violence cases, but I think we have moved a step further into providing it on a purely voluntary basis when somebody has been exposed or think they will be exposed. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for according me these few minutes.
Thank you, Honourable Member, for your contribution. I will now give the floor to the member from Tanzania. The member for the United Republic of... Was there a hand raised? If not, then I will continue with the member from Namibia. Tanzania? Oh, okay. I'm sorry you were waiting for the mic. Yes, we will take the member from Tanzania.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name Kimea from Tanzania. In fact, I think
I think we have a problem with this mic. Please try another one.
hello. Okay, thank you, Mr. President. In fact, mine is a very small issue. I had presentation from, I think, Tanzania and the Botswana relating to pharmaceutical issues in our SADC region. And the issue we discussed in our previous meetings that in our country we may depend on importation of these pharmaceutical products, and we were encouraging our country to set production facilities so that we can have those products from our own industries. So I had Tanzania, they have make some recommendable action, and Botswana, was it? It was Zambia, I think. So my question was to head of delegation from Namibia, as he said, they have contacted, I think it is Egypt and I think India to set base in their country. So first question from the presenter, are they coming to manufacture in Zambia, or they just importing and they will distribute from there? As as Mr. Z said, Tanzania was just a procuring country to other SADC countries. So my question is, are they going to manufacture from Zambia, or they will do like what Medical Store Department of Tanzania is currently doing? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. A question has been directed to the head of delegation of Namibia. We ask the head of delegation to note, and we will take the contribution of the member from Namibia. Was there a member from Namibia? The gentleman who raised the thing, are you a member of a delegation or an observer? Because observers are not entitled to address the debate. I will proceed with the member from Seychelles.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to make a small comment on the presentation of, no, I think it was Zimbabwe. When he I just wanted some clarification. When he mentioned about giving condoms to girls, the girl child, I wanted to know in what context they were thinking about giving condom to the girl child. If it is for protecting the girl child already in marriage, I just wanted some clarity on the issue, because he mentioned this in his report. I thank you.
Thank you. I will ask members, members should have raised their hands at the beginning of this session, but I will make an indulgence to the member. Is it the member from Lesotho?
Thank you, Mr. President. The first issue relates to the point mentioned by the delegation from Zimbabwe. They were saying that as a way of ensuring the implementation of some of these decisions made in international fora, they have established a committee, a special committee of Parliament, to pursue these matters and to make sure that there is progress on these commitments made in international fora. My question is this: how was that committee constituted? What kind of people have been made to be roped into this committee? Were there any criteria used? Could this be people that are already members in this international fora, or would they have picked people on other measures of suitability? That is the one point. The second and last point, Mr. Chairman, and blame my ignorance, if you want, on being new. That is a very good excuse. On this matter of transforming the forum into parliament, being a new person, I have not had any real committal responses. There has always been very smart talk, like the head of delegation from Botswana would talk about it needs to be cogitated properly and so on. And quite honestly, it is a big issue. It's a huge matter which understandably will consume resources. But if we don't have those resources, why do we keep talking about this thing? Why is it not being abandoned? But if it is important enough not to be abandoned, then when will it happen? Taking into account and accepting that it's going to cost resources, but there must be a timeline. No objective can be achieved without a specific timeline. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I have noted a question for the head of delegation from Zimbabwe. And the other point about the transformation agenda, we will address, I think, in response to the report of the executive committee. I had a hand from Zambia. Is that correct? Zambia.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I think I'll try to be precise to the presenter, who was our last presenter from Zimbabwe. First of all, to thank him for the presentation that he gave us. I guess my question relates to the women. He said that they always have a pre-submission into their national budget, and this has led to the budget being gender sensitive. And they said it is a caucus. As someone who sits as the chairperson for the Zambian Women Parliamentarian Caucus, and we are in the conversation of trying to see whether we become institutionalized as part of the committees at Parliament, and them already doing so much, and yet I saw that it was still under a caucus. Maybe we could get a clarification and some of the learnings that we can have at Zambia. And then lastly, there is a lot of conversation around the pharmaceutical companies. Tanzania giving us an example, or the agreement, whether it was a gentleman's handshake or it was written, where that they will buy on behalf of other SADC countries. The speaker said that from Tanzania, that he will come back with a full report, and then we have heard of the initiative that Zimbabwe is doing. I just want to connect that to the HIV and AIDS conversation. As someone who has been living with HIV since 1997, and now as a member of Parliament, I just hope that the member states in the SADC region should really enter the conversation around the one-year injectable treatment that is coming. Because if you don't do that now, you'll be left behind, as you were left behind around the treatment of HIV, which saw a lot of Africans die. And I have a privilege to get my treatment in America, but that's not the privilege of every child or every person in Africa. And I think this is something we need to add as we talk about HIV in SADC states. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable member. I will now recognize the member from Tanzania, who had raised a hand earlier. Honorable member?
Yes,
you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. There are two things which didn't come very clearly, didn't come well in the discussion, and they were among our resolutions. One, it's about the Malabo Declaration. Now that we are talking about modernizing agriculture to address food insecurity and youth unemployment, I think it is high time we also search our souls in our countries and see how many countries have really taken aboard the Malabo Declaration. As mentioned by our presenter, we've tripled the budget, but yet it's not the 5% of what is supposed to be of the budget, the country's budget. So I don't know about the rest of the countries. Are your countries really taking aboard the 5% of the national budget to be priority in improving or in modernizing agriculture? And number two, I'm complimenting what my Botswana colleague just said about subscription fees. Most of the time we feel shy to discuss about the fees. And most of the time, our Excellency, the Secretary General, carry on or keep on knocking doors to those who are going to support us. She's always asking for support for all those seminars, workshops here and there. Well, we do not pay our subscription fees. Now, when are we going to agree? Time to pay the subscription fees? Because others feel that they are carrying the other group too much. And then it has been just a job of SG Bohem to do it as her, her duty. She's just taking too much. She's overwhelmed. I feel sorry for her and the SADC Secretariat. But now with all these big brains sitting under this roof at Grand Melia in Tanzania, what do we decide now? Honorable President of SADC, I think we should agree. Thank you. I submit.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I think the subject of the subscription fee is another matter that will be best raised in the report of the Executive Committee, since it considers all the member countries. I will need to close this session, but I think I might have missed a member from Angola. Was there a request? There was a request, okay? So the member from Angola will close.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I thank you for giving me the floor. I would like to congratulate the clerk of SADC Parliamentary Forum and the honorable members. I would like to say that I'm pleased for the fact that all countries have gender equality at the center of their activities, taking into account that women represent more than half of the population in the world. And we cannot talk about true democracy without including women. And here we saw in the reports that were submitted here that the clock on women's inclusion has been marching forward, and we have exchanged experiences with other countries in order to avoid that women are left behind in electoral processes. Angola, in addition to the constitution enshrining gender equality between men and women, there is a law that forces political parties to include in their lists at least 30% of women in order to avoid discrimination against women. And we think that SADC Parliamentary Forum should adopt model law with a view of
and Madagascar has just finalized their arrangements and will start procurement soon, pharmaceutical from Tanzania. But the rest of the SADC countries, negotiations are going on. So currently it's Seychelles, Comoro, Madagascar will just soon join in procurement of the pharmaceutical from Tanzania. So that's the list that she wanted to have.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Your contribution comes as a response to the debate. I believe the member from Zimbabwe has the floor.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I have two quick responses to make on questions that came from the floor. I wish to indicate that in our country we have CAPS, Varichem, among other countries, among other companies that produce drugs. But as you would appreciate, they do not have the capacity to meet our country's needs. So the two companies from India and Egypt, respectively, that I referred to in my report, come in through joint ventures with local companies to manufacture medicine. Is provided for in our Joint Venture Act. And then on the question of access to condoms by girls in school, this I would like you to view in the picture of a consultative process that was going on between the Women's Caucus and stakeholders. The Women's Caucus, as you would appreciate, is a lobby group in its own right with immense influence on policy. The same public consultative process was undertaken by our Committee on Health and Child Care. And it is out of these surveys that moral rectitude won the day, where our people were saying the education sector needed to upscale sexual education, which anchors on moral. So it's really a debate on moral rectitude versus access to condoms by young people in school. And it was generally felt we should prioritize moral education over granting access to condoms by girls in school. I hope I have made it clear. Thank you, Honorable President.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I believe the delegations that had questions addressed to them have responded to the questions. Was there a response from